the quarterback position, you are to me a perfect example. And Brady gets mentioned a lot that he had to wait a little, but to me, you're the perfect example of it. Doesn't have to be instantaneous. You don't have to be a week one starter. You don't have to win it out of your first training camp. Watching, learning, maybe bouncing around can benefit you in the long run. Brady has talked about this, and some other guys have as well. What do you think about this era where I get it? You're looking for the new franchise quarterback. You draft someone high; they're going to play eventually. But we're going to see a week one where you're going to have Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
You're going to have Caleb Williams. You have a lot of talent, but you have some questions. And we've also seen lately guys are promoted early, and then it never works out. I think of someone like Zach Wilson. What do you think about all these rookie starters? And then the other part of that, a lot of Caleb Williams talk, but is there anyone who you really have your eye on who you think maybe has the highest ceiling? Or you think this is going to be the star, whether it is Williams or Jaden Daniels or Drake May or somebody else?
Yeah. The first thing I would say is every situation is different. It's different because of the player that you're asking to play. There's different kinds of guys that can handle adversity, that can go through the slumps and those moments and handle the scrutiny and all of that. There's different guys in terms of how ready are they to handle everything that comes with being an NFL quarterback. And so, I think that's the first part of it. I think the second part is, where's your team at? Patrick Mahomes got to sit because Alex Smith was there, who was really, really good. Tom Brady got to sit because Drew Bledsoe, a $100 million quarterback, was there. I got to sit because they brought Trent Green in to be that franchise guy for the Rams. And so each of those situations had a guy. Now, you can argue whether that guy was better than the backup at the time, but that wasn't the point. The point was they had the luxury of going, man, we don't have to force this guy in. We can allow this guy to learn not only how to play football, but also how to be the representative of a franchise and deal with all the stuff that goes into it. And so they had the luxury. There's a lot of teams that don't have that luxury. But to me, the biggest caveat for all of it is a coach needs to understand, is that quarterback anywhere close to being ready to handle what you're going to lay on his plate? Justin Fields, I think, is a great example of that.
Yep.
Is Justin Fields battled, and Justin Fields did some incredible things on an NFL field, but he wasn't ready to be the guy to carry a football team when they inserted him as a starter. Zach Wilson, same thing. These guys were guys that were still learning, guys that are still learning to this day how to understand it and play the game and play the position and be able to make the game easier on themselves. They're still learning that. Yet both of them were thrown into the mix and go be our savior. Mm-hmm. And it's unfair to those guys because they aren't ready for that quite yet. And so what we've seen is, both of those guys are no longer with their original teams because it's nearly impossible for anyone to do that. There are certain guys that are closer, certain guys that have a different makeup, like an Andrew Luck to me was a guy that you just, you saw all the capabilities. You knew he had that in him. So you can kind of throw him to the wolves and know there's going to be some growing pains. But because he's got that background and that understanding of how to play the position, you really feel like he's going to be able to work through that. Other guys can get swallowed up because, I always say this, you can get by at the lower levels by being the most talented guy and being on the most talented team and all of those kinds of things. It's really hard to live in that world in the NFL. You can still make some plays. You can still be the most athletic guy on the field, but it's hard to live in that world. Yeah. And so when you're thrown in and that's really all now the next challenge becomes, how does this person grow as a quarterback when what they're really trying to do is survive and give us a chance to win in the process? It's really, really hard to do because, to get a Justin Fields like, hey, don't worry about running right now. We're going to spend a year, improving your pocket presence and understanding of how to play the game. It's impossible to do because Justin just wants to compete and win. So he's going to go do and fall back on what he's always fallen back on. Kyler Murray, I think, is another example that's making some strides, but that's kind of was his mold as well. That it's more creativity and athleticism than it is playing the position. And you start to realize that, hey, that can work, in the regular season against some of the average teams and you can have success. But that's a really hard way to play when you're playing against really good teams week in and week out, or when you get to playoff time. But it's, how do we get one of those young quarterbacks to grow into that while also having the expectation and the pressure to win every time they step on the football field? It's a tough dynamic for me. And that's where I think sitting some of those guys can really pay huge dividends, because you can really hone in and work on those things that you need them to work on. And you're not just throwing them out there with the ball and saying, hey, do the best you can to give us a chance, because I think then you're always going to revert back to what you know, or what your normal is. And so for some of these tremendously athletic quarterbacks, that's going to be their normal, because they've been the best athlete on the field their entire lives. And they're going to think that you can do that at this level. And it's just a really difficult thing, in my opinion.
100%.
And spoken from a guy that has no athletic ability whatsoever. So, take that with a grain of salt. But just watching the film every week, you can make 3 or 4 plays, but it's hard to make 8, 9, 10, 11 of those special plays every week to carry your football team.
Really quick, out of the current class, the new starters, is there anyone that you like the best, or you just feel is going to become the one out of this group?
Yeah, again, I hate to speculate on all that, and I hate to put pressure on these guys. I mean, I think there's things to like about all of them.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels looks very comfortable, and he, to me, he had the best college season in the league last year, in college football last year. And so I've seen that feel like it translates, in the preseason time I've seen him. But that doesn't mean anything. I remember watching Ryan Leaf in his first preseason game. Up close and personal. We played against him, and he threw for like 150 yards and ran for another 50 in the first half. And I'm thinking, like, oh man, all right, this guy's the real deal. And then obviously it didn't work out for Ryan in the league. And so, a lot of things can happen in preseason that don't correlate to the regular season. But I like what I've seen from Jaden Daniels. Caleb Williams, you had some questions about him, standing in the pocket and going through progressions. I think he's done a decent job in preseason at showing he's got the capabilities of doing that, along with some of that special that we knew he had. And so he intrigues me, that he can have some success. And it may not be as quickly as he learns some of those nuances, but I see, the different pieces that are there. Drake May, I thought, just struggled a little bit last year in college. And so I wanted to see the consistency. In the preseason, I think that's kind of held up, is that you've seen some really good moments. You've seen some other moments where you're like, okay, maybe not quite ready. Bo Nix, again, what you saw in college has translated, is that gets the ball out, makes good decisions, doesn't necessarily wow you with big throws down the field, but he does the right thing with the football. Now he's named the starter, in Denver. So I'm intrigued by a lot of these guys. I've seen some really good things in preseason from all of these guys. Now it's, how does that translate when somebody gets a book on you? How does that translate when you see, real game plan defenses, or you've got to push the envelope offensively to do some different things on a week-to-week basis and get comfortable with those things in 6 days? Those are all questions to answer, but I'm excited for all of them. I've seen some good things from all of them. JJ McCarthy, probably should mention him, in his first game. I thought he played really, really well, looked really good, maybe the best in the first week. And even Michael Penix did some really good things, even though he didn't have a lot of playing time. And obviously we don't project him to be, to be a starter or play a lot this season. But, for all of those guys, I've seen and saw some good things in preseason that correlated to the good things that they did in college. Now it's expand. Now it's get better. Now it's get more consistent. Now it's, work through the lumps. When you throw an interception or you have a 2 or 3 interception game, it's working through those things. So those are going to be the telltale signs. But all of them, show me some impressive things through the preseason.
Kurt, thank you so much for coming on talkSPORT. We really appreciate it. Great talking to you, and have a great year covering the NFL, man.
You got it. Thanks for having me on, and maybe we'll cross paths somewhere during the season.